Good morning. Today's story is actually a story that happened in history at a time when I can actually remember. All of the other stories I've told you so far were way before I was born, but this one, oh, I forgot to mention, Scout is attending our meeting this morning. Hopefully, she will stay up there and we'll see if anybody else joins us. I should have kept my mouth shut, shouldn't I? But anyway, this story takes place at a time when I can actually remember it happening. I'm going to tell you the story today of the Iranian hostage crisis, which was a time when the embassy in Tehran, which was the capital of Iran, was overrun and taken over by Iranian students who were upset about some things that were happening in their country, and the fact that the Shah of Iran, who is the king basically of Iran, had been forced to leave the country and had gone to America, and we were keeping him here and letting him live here, and they wanted him back. Stop that. Scout's helping me with the computer this morning. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the Iranians wanted him back to make him stand trial. And the Americans, we would not give him back. So they were angry and upset about that. And so on November the 5th in 1979, I was in the ninth grade. A group of these students climbed over the fence and got into the embassy. And an embassy in a foreign country is like if you take a little piece of your country and set it down in that country, it belongs to you. It does not belong to the country where the embassy is actually located. And it's supposed to be safe. No one's supposed to ever be able to go into the embassy without permission. The laws of the country that it's in do not apply to it. The laws of the country, like if it's an American embassy, American law applies to that embassy. It does not belong to the people in Iran or wherever it is. So this was terrifying that these people would actually climb the wall and take over this embassy. And in the process, they took hostage 66 American people that worked at the embassy, and they were threatening to kill them and all sorts of terrible things. Eventually, they released 14 of these people that were women. They released some people that were African American, and they released one gentleman that was very ill. He had, I think it was diabetes, but I may be wrong about that. But he was very ill and needed some sort of medical care that they were not prepared to give him. And so that ended up with being 52 hostages left in Iran. And this was appalling. The people in the country and in America were losing their minds over this. And rightly so, this had never happened before. And it was truly terrifying. If this could happen, what else could happen? What else could go wrong? So people in America were doing things like they were tying yellow ribbons around trees, which was a symbol of, we remember that you're there and we want you back. And that comes from an old song that was about a man that was in prison. He was getting out of prison and he wanted his wife to tie a ribbon around the tree, a yellow ribbon around a tree, so he would know if he could come home or if he had to just go find someplace else to live. And at the end of the song, she had tied all these yellow ribbons. And so he was very happy. And that's where that came from. Tie a yellow ribbon is a symbol of, we remember you, we want you to come home. Every night the news would start with, this is day whatever, however many of the American hostage crisis in Tehran, and they would talk about that. Kind of like now all they're talking about is the virus. That's how they were talking about this hostage crisis. In the middle of all of this, something else was going on that we didn't know about until it was over. But when the Iranian students had come over the fence and started taking over the embassy, there were lots of different buildings. It wasn't just one building. It was a complex, and there were lots of different buildings in this complex. And one of the buildings had an access outside the fence to the street. Pardon me. And so 6 Americans that worked at this embassy managed to get out onto the street before they were taken hostage. And they were running on the street and trying to find some place to go where they could be and be safe until they could get back to America. And they ended up going to the Canadian embassy, and the Canadians said, yes, we will absolutely help you. I believe they had checked with the British embassy first, and they said, yeah, no, we're not going to help you. We're going to get in trouble over it. We're not going to do it. But the Canadians said, yes, absolutely, we will help you. And so they took these 6 people and they kind of spread them out among the houses of the people that worked at the embassy, because they were not in trouble with the Iranians yet. It would have happened eventually, I imagine, but it hadn't happened yet. And so for 75 days or so, these people were hiding in the Canadians' houses. And finally, they decided in America that we've got to get these people out. And the Canadians were starting to get a little worried about it, because everybody figured it would be over in a day or two, that, this would be over. And it just kept going on and on and on. And it didn't look like it was ever going to get over. And so the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, along with the Canadians, came up with a plan to get these 6 Americans out of Iran. And it was called it was a situation where they sent in one man. His name was Tony Mendez, and he was supposed to get these 6 people and bring them out. That's what he did. He went into situations. I don't know what the cat's doing in there, but it sounds a little bad, and brought them out. And so he came up with the idea to pretend that these 6 people and himself were a movie company, and they were scouting locations where they were going to shoot kind of a knockoff Star Wars movie, because Star Wars had come out in 1976, and it was a huge, or 77, and it was a huge movie. Everybody loved it. The first one, The New Hope, not those nonsense ones that came later. But so he was going to pretend that they were scouting a location. And so they had done all of this stuff. They came up with a script. They found all this stuff that they could make work. And he went into Iran to get these people out. And he managed to get the 6 of them out. And they left Iran on January the 27th, 1980. So they'd been there for a while. And that was, but nobody knew about that, because they didn't want anybody to tell that those 6 were still there, so that the Iranians would be looking for them. So we didn't know that was all going on until after they were back in America. The rest of the hostages, President Carter, Jimmy Carter, decided he was going to send a rescue mission, a military mission, to get them out. So on April the 24th, it took a good little while for this to happen. April the 24th of 1980, he sent this mission to get them. This was Operation Eagle Claw. And it went badly from the very beginning. It was supposed to have all of these helicopters, and you were supposed to be like 10 helicopters that were going to go. But in the end, they only had 5 helicopters that would work. And so they decided, well, that's it. We have to scrub the whole mission and just, we're going to go home. And they had gotten to one of the points in the desert, which was a staging area, and a little sandstorm had come up. And that's why not all of the helicopters would work. And so as they're leaving to take the helicopters and the men back, one of the helicopters actually ran into an airplane. It was a military airplane, but they ran into the airplane. 8 men were killed. Both of the aircraft, the helicopter and the plane, were completely destroyed. And so, this was an embarrassment to the United States, that we can't even go in there and get our people out. This is embarrassing. And this is 1980, and so that's a presidential election year. President Carter had been in his first term. He was elected in 1976, and this was the end of his first term. And so he's running for re-election against a man named Ronald Reagan, who was running on the other side. President Carter was a Democrat. Mr. Reagan was a Republican. And Mr. Reagan's whole point was, somebody's got to go in there and fix this. And if I'm elected, I'm going to take care of this. I will bomb Iran to where the point that they can't ever come at us again. And I promise this is what I'm going to do. Well, he was elected in 1980. He was elected. The hostages are still being kept. All of this is still going on. January 21st is Inauguration Day. That's the day that the new president, whoever he is, comes in and takes over the office. of the year. You know, he's elected in November, and or maybe someday a she is elected in November, and then in January 21st, they come in and take over the office, and whoever was there before leaves. That's just how it works. So January 21st, 1980 was inauguration day. And within an hour or so of President Reagan standing there and holding his hand up and taking the office and being sworn in to be the new president, the hostages in Iran were released. All 52 of them came home. They had been in captivity for 444 days. I remember this happening. It was a huge deal. We were all worried about, is this going to be a war? What's going to happen? People were tying yellow ribbons around their trees. So if you see people tying yellow ribbons around something, sometimes it's a car antenna, sometimes it's a tree. That's what that all means. All right. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'll talk to you later. Bye.